All right, I got sommelier spelled wrong. I think I fixed it for later, but we'll see what happens. I'm sure I will get clowned for that. But here we go. Let's go. All right, welcome to evidence-based audio number 201. Eek. I see nobody here yet. Okay, well that's okay. You can listen to this later. This one is called Tonewood Tapping Sommeliers. And is that how you say it? Sommelier? Sommelier? I don't know. I spelled it wrong. But you know who these guys are, the wine sniffers that can't tell the difference between a white wine and a red wine, yet make oodles of money just like magical cable checkers and magical mic preamp checkers that also can't tell the difference between the stuff they claim. We'll talk about that in just a second here, but first of all, the neural DSP quad cortex stuff just continues to spiral and circle the drain. I'm sorry. I don't want to see a company fail. I don't know why I'm taking so much glee in. Well, I can tell you why. Because this is so much like when we were harassed for using whatever DAW instead of the alleged industry standard back in the day, which led to actually making Reaper and everything. Because I want to use what I want to use, and there was like this weird air of superiority. This is a typical mythical claims of magical sounds that only they can hear. Um, it's your typical stuff, and who knows? If you knew this device, it was on my vaporware watch list for quite a while, but it came out, and I know we've been talking about it a lot the last couple of weeks, but mainly because the way it's being handled is awful. It seems like on their Discord they're banning anybody who even asks where the updates are. They're 2 years late. Um, I think we talked about it a couple of weeks ago. Sweetwater had some pages up that were falsely showing some things that didn't actually exist on the product yet, and I think they're probably still on there. Let me go hit Sweetwater's page real quick, and let's just see. Let's see if these are still there. Um, you go to Quad Cortex, and let's see. I called Sweetwater and I told them, or actually, yeah, did I leave them a message? I know I emailed them. Here's their sales page for the Quad Cortex right here, and here you go. Here's the editor that doesn't exist, and it's still on Sweetwater's page, which is kind of insane. They took away some of the other claims that really couldn't be backed up. I don't have much tech. I play a Warmoth Strat I built, orange amp and a few pedals, overdrive and distortion. Awesome. That's cool. I saw that Warmoth was advertising. Actually, no. One of our kids that plays in one of the kids bands actually bought one. A scalloped a neck that was factory scalloped from them. I tried to get them to do a 7-string neck like that. They said they couldn't, but I actually found another place that will take an existing neck. I'm probably getting into bolt-ons, man. I love my neck through bodies, but it's just I'm getting old and I can't lift the things anymore. I think kind of want the bolt-ons. Um, anyway, getting back to this. So this is this is the Quad Cortex on Sweetwater's page. They're still showing this editor that doesn't exist. Um, People are getting banned from the gear page. We've had our problems with them, the bias moderation and stuff, but it really seems like they are just straight shilling for Quad Cortex at this point and shutting down any kind of criticisms. And so here over at gearforum.com, it's gone up to 65 pages waiting for the update, and no updates in sight. And I think this page was actually made because of all the bannings over at the gear page. And it's funny that that's kind of become my go-to forum, where I'm not a guitar player, I'm not really a musician, and so I was always in the audio engineering forums and stuff. But now I own a Helix, and I like talking to other people who own Helixes, and like I say, I'm not a guitar player. I'm not a professional guitar player. I have a guitar. I like to play it. Um, yeah, David, I've never seen anything bad from Mormoth. Honestly, I mean, people used to make fun of them for being cheap or whatever. They're not that cheap anymore, and even back then, it wasn't bad stuff. It was always good stuff. Yeah, I love their stuff. Okay, so this quad cortex is up to 65 pages. Um, People are still sending them back and getting refunds and stuff. And one of the things I want to say is if you go to their Discord or if you go to some of the forums around the places where it's popular, it seems like even the owners and definitely the mods are banning people and stuff. And if that's really how they're going to do business, I was kind of going to hold on to one until maybe the update came out and see how it is. But I just don't want to deal with these people. That's not how we run our business, and it takes me a lot to actually ban somebody. I don't know if I ever have actually, but if you got to complain about us, I'd love it if you told me privately, but if you say it in public, that just makes me even more want to fix the problem, not ban you. What is banning you going to do? Somebody else is going to have the same problem, and they're just going to call it out again. We got to fix it, we have our problems, and we try and fix them. So, no, let me know. I'm not going to ban you for telling me something's broken. Or if I promise the feature that's not there, which I hope I've never done. But anyway, so 65 pages on this thing. And how many threads got deleted on the other gear forum, the gear page and everything else. There's been like a lot of screenshots every time a thread gets made and deleted. I don't even know that thing has all that much DSP. Like, it was supposed to be more powerful than all the rest of them. I mean, the Helix is like 7 years old now, 8 years old. Holy crap, that's an eternity for digital gear. I can't believe I still have one. I mean, I got mine late in the game, but I can't believe they're still making them, and I'd love to have more DSP on it. There's a couple of effects that I have trouble because I just don't have enough DSP. They massively took down the DSP use of the impulse loader in the cabinets lately, which really made everything a lot easier. But yeah, I'd love to see the poly pitch stuff come down, and I'd love to see some poly synths. But it's not like that stuff's on the quad cortex either, and the effects they have are really chintzy, man. So anyway, I'm gonna start bagging on the quad cortex. It's just hilarious to watch these guys go on. It's like the Gibson and Fender diehards, the guys can do no wrong, So anyway, there's another post over at the gearforum.com, and this is calibrating Helix native input level. And I know the title of this, but this could be used for a lot of different stuff. And really, in this case, the Helix native plugin almost exactly duplicates the Helix hardware units. I say almost exactly because certain things like effects loops and things like that aren't quite taken into account the way I think they could be and should be. But I mean, the DSP is supposed to be the same. All the audio stuff should sound exactly the same. It should be. I mean, it's so close. I mean, what you make presets on your native DAW on your plugin version, and you can move them to the hardware version, and vice versa. That's how I do that all the time. So anything that you have where you have a hardware and a software unit, and they should sound the same, getting the input level right is important. And in the case of the Helix hardware, you just plug your guitar in, right? And you can choose a pad or not. And in the case of the software, think about it. I'm going to a DI box, and I'm going from my DI into a mic pre. I'm going from the mic pre into an audio interface. So there's a couple things that can go wrong there. And the way they're showing to do it is to get a test tone, go on, measure it with the multimeter, and then see what level triggers the threshold on a noise gate on the hardware unit, and then match it to your software And I did the same sort of thing, except for I used my Behringer the test. What is this thing called? Let's see. It is the CT100. If you guys are on your TikTok, guys, I know that I still don't have my stream key, so this is the one benefit you got. You can actually see this thing. It's got like a little test tone out for testing mic cables and things, and so I just use that to calibrate it. So basically, I just find what threshold level just barely opens up from that test tone, then do the same thing with the plug-in, plug a cable in, simple enough to do. But because before I didn't have this very right, and my noise gates, for instance, would never work because they're at completely wrong levels, and the distortion, the amount of compression and stuff is always off. So this is a really handy thing to have, to just do this. Hey, Prisma Prolific. This is my weekly show. I usually tackle like audio myths or talk about how to accurately assess something that you're thinking about buying or a piece of gear you have. Maybe we talk about fixing it. That's all. It's just evidence-based audio and trying to have a real world understanding of the reality of our audio devices instead of just taking the marketing guy's word for it, for instance, or all these gurus and shills on YouTube. Okay, so one thing about new products. I don't know how new. It says November 2022, so this is a ways back, but this is the first I've seen it. George Massenburg's got a plug-in out, some sort of compressor. It is the Massenburg Design Works MDW-DRC2 native, and it's a dynamic range controller plug-in for Pro Tools, AAX, VST3, and audio units. State-of-the-art sound quality and digital dynamics from George Massenburg. So if you don't know George Massenburg, he was the guy who really invented the parametric EQ, right? He's kind of known for having a pretty strong opinion, but a very science-based dude. I really like George Massenburg. So it looks like $400 you get this plug-in. So looks like let's see what we got here. Some kind of dynamic range thing. I don't know if you'd use this as a compressor or what. It says it's a different kind of automatic gain control, like the GML 8900. It's best implemented and utilized as a dynamic loudness controller, which responds to loudness more as our ears and brains do. Yeah, I don't know where I'd use this in a mix, but because it says Massenburg on it, I don't know. Might want to have it. I don't tend to use these kind of tools, but if I was, I would definitely be looking at this, and this is definitely not paid for by George Massenburg. What do I recommend for PC headphones, man? I wish I knew. I got to get something. I just use the AKG K240s. Is that the one? K240S. And they're not super great. They're not all that isolating, but because they've been in the studios for so long, it's kind of like the NS10. You just got so used to these things that's what I'm used to. I wonder how much these things cost. Go to Amazon. So here they go. $73. I don't know. I mean, it comes with an 1/8-inch jack, so you could use it with a computer, or you could. Oh, hold on. Sorry, I got to give somebody a cable here. Yeah, here you go. Hey, thank you so much. Oh, no problem. All right, sorry about that. Like I say, this is live, and we got a music school and studio and everything to run here. Somebody just came by to pick up a cable. Yeah, these, I was never a huge fan of these things back in the day. I don't know if they still do, but they use silver solder, and in the studio, these things get broken all the time. All headphones do, and they were so hard to solder back up back then. I haven't had to do it nowadays, but I wonder. And I've started to use the Euro solder and stuff, so maybe I'm a little bit better off. But these are definitely not closed headphones. They do have better bass response because of it, but if you really need isolation, like I know singers love to use these headphones, and you always hear them leaking into the mic. So take that into consideration. But in terms of just having something that I know and I'm familiar with since forever, it's these. I know people pay a lot of money for this really good Sennheisers, you know, 500, 600 bucks or more. But I never really needed it that much, so I don't know. I like these. Okay, so here's the main meat today. We're gonna watch Jim Lill. If you guys haven't, so we reference this video a lot on this show, and this is it's about the Tonewood debate. If you're not interested in Tonewood stuff, this is probably going to be like watching paint dry. But then again, you may be interested in, even if you're not into Tonewood, you might be looking at epistemology, might be looking at how do we know the things we know? Why should I buy this more expensive mic preamp or more expensive device? Is it really going to make things sound better? How do we measure that? How do we know? How do we do it without just taking some marketer guy's word for it, right? I talk about this all the time, that in general, you know, if you're talking about something transparent, if you're talking about something that at least is going to pass your signal without messing it up, there's some parameters. Distortion, how is it going to distort the thing? Noise, is it adding noise? Bandwidth, like what is the lowest and highest frequencies that this thing can reproduce? And, you know, I'm not going to get into the 96K war or anything like that really right now. But, you know, it is to, you know, you have to understand in digital audio, there is aliasing to deal with. And frequency response, which is how flat the audio, the volume of each frequency is inside the pass band. So people get bandwidth and frequency response mixed up all the time, but they're not the same thing. Bandwidth is the highest and lowest frequencies you can reproduce, and frequency response is how accurately does it reproduce the signals that are within that bandwidth. Or you could say just as reproduce frequencies in general. So that's really how you tell whether or not something is at least transparent. Whether or not you want something to change the sound, and if it changes it the way you like, that's a whole different thing. But the idea in Tonewood is for the most part on an electric guitar, a pickup is a motor, just like the alternator in your car. Like you're changing mechanical energy into electrical energy, basically. And that's what a pickup does. So I know you guys are all going to send a hate mail, but go ahead. Just like changing the hood on your car to a wooden hood instead of a steel one isn't going to mess up your alternator. Kind of doesn't matter the guitar. It's the pickup that matters. All right. So anyway, let me get to this video. So Jim Lill does a lot of skeptical videos. He did one on where does the tone come from in a speaker cabinet and amplifiers. And these are eye-opening. This is stuff we've been doing since forever. I really like the way he does these videos. So here we go. We're just gonna watch this. Hopefully I don't get DMCA'd. This is fair use, so I have to do the thing. I'll go splash it on the screen real quick. Fair use. Do not DMCA me. Thank you, please. All right, there we go. So here comes. And I advise you to subscribe to this channel, Jim Lill. That's JIM space LILL. And here we go. We're gonna hit the play. I'm really sorry, TikTok guys. They haven't given me a stream key, so I'm just throwing my phone at the screen. You can't really see what I'm typing and stuff, which is sucky. But you know, I don't know. I'm hoping to have a stream key soon.
Over the holidays, I wanted to find out the truth about where the tone comes from in an electric guitar. What makes one electric guitar sound different from another when they're plugged into the same amp? I've read and heard all sorts of ways that every single part on the guitar can make a difference in the sound, but I don't actually know if any of that's true. I wanted to take the time to actually test them and capture the results with audio and video so you guys can see for yourself and decide what you think's important too. First,
so I really like the way that this guy approaches stuff with, like they say, the child's mind, you know, curious mind that doesn't, you try and throw out every preconceived idea you have. And the amount of absolute nonsense and constant just bloviating garbage that comes out of the professional guitar community, man. I mean, you want to see some crazy stuff, go watch a Paul Reed Smith video sometime. it's no different than like the pair cables. You know, $60,000 speaker cable going to sound better than a coat hanger or whatever. They don't. Spoiler alert, but you know, electric guitar is so subtle that just, you know, changing the where you moved your hands is going to make a huge difference. Moving a mic by a degree or a millimeter on your speaker cabinet is going to have a huge effect on the sound. And so there's so many little subtleties that it's hard. And so if you claim something like, oh, this bridge makes this thing sound super good or super bad, or this wood is what's responsible for making it sound good or bad, you can get away with it because it's really hard to test. But that's what Jim aims to do here, is to actually test this stuff. But there's so many other things that people claim besides the Tonewood. You know, the neck pocket, paint, fretboard material, these like weights and shapes of the guitar. Yeah, you remember like the advertisements back in the day that when the Jackson Kelly came out, and they're like, yeah, it was really hard to get a guitar to sound good in this shape. And we've seen too many 2x4 guitars that sound just like regular guitars to even believe that crap anymore. But back in the day, I believed it. It wasn't even that long ago that I still believed that a maple or a rosewood fingerboard made a huge difference in the brightness of the sound. And I had to eat those words. So anyway, here we go.
First thing I did was email 3 very high-end guitar builders whose guitars I've personally played and enjoyed very much. And I asked them the question, what 5 factors in an electric guitar make the most difference in the amplified sound? Here's how they responded.
So if you ask these 3 guitar makers what makes the most difference in the amplified sound, and somebody says bodywood, the neck, the tone follows the neck more than anything, bodywood. So number 2 guy puts bodywood. First guy puts number 1 is bodywood. The third guy says, fortunately for number 5, wood materials that the guitar is built from. He puts the guitar, the player, and the player. The second one he puts for, this is guy number 3. He says number 2 is the guitar's pickups and other electronics. Construction of the guitar, chambering of the body, and guitar scale length. I don't know that chambering even matters. Somebody else says weight of the body, bridge saddles. Number 5, pickups. Wow. No, he's talking about an electric guitar. I would think pickups should be number 1 on everybody's list here. See, the first guy says, puts pickups as number 3. He says pickups as the microphone and tuner for the sound those first 2 made. Glenn Fricker's done a lot of videos lately on pickups. I'm not 1,000% sure I agree with every bit of it, but I really agree with most of it. So maybe you go check those out. So let's go on from here. I'm surprised that 3 guitar makers would say this kind of stuff. That's kind of screwball.
I was surprised at how different their lists were from each other.
But that's another thing. So this is like when you're talking about religions, right? People could all be claiming to come from the same religion, but they have such drastically different versions of it. So I always tell them, you guys figure all that out between yourselves, fight it out, and then come to me. And if you see these are probably 3 very respected guitar builders here, and they have totally different ideas of what these are. So that should tell you that either this thing is unknown or this is something faith-based, because that's usually the sign of it, right? If you have drastically different interpretations of the same data, especially something that you can actually test, and you haven't tested it, or when you tested it, you just did confirmation bias to it, that's usually a faith-based claim, right?
With these factors in mind, I needed a test guitar that I could hack up and change parts on without feeling stress, so I bought a kit for $100 and put it together.
So he made like a parts deli. Video of him. Oh, see, I still don't have one of these Hacko FX88D whatever soldering irons. I need to get one of these things, I think. I know everybody's got them. I don't have one. I still got my Weller WLC 100. I was actually just using it this morning. So again, yay, TikTok, you get to see something that the other guys don't get to see. I guess I could throw up a webcam or something, but nobody wants to see my ugly face. All right, let me go on.
As a baseline, I tested it against my Tom Anderson Telly because almost everything about the Anderson is different than the parts caster.
Okay, so he's got a Tom Anderson Telecaster. I think he likes. Man, this guy can rip. Like, I don't play any of that country stuff, but I am not messing with his technique. This guy is a serious ripper. So right off the bat, we got totally different sounding guitars, right? And I'm sure somebody's gonna say it's the wood, it's the shape of the headstock, it's the metals used in the bridge. I'm gonna go out on a limb here, and just say it's a couple things. The pickup, do they have the same pickups? How high is the pickup compared to the strings, and where along the string length is the pickup? So where is the pickup actually between the bridge and the neck? So that's what's going to matter to me. Okay. I haven't really found anything else. The other one's sustain. Like, I really still think there's probably something material to the sustain of a guitar, but it's kind of weird. Guitars that I don't think sustain very well, when I actually test them, they sustain about as long as the ones that I think do sustain well, which is probably me screwing up. But let me go on here.
The only
one is way cleaner, right? The parts caster is way cleaner.
The only difference here, and with any test in this video, is the guitars. Everything after the guitar is identical, and everything...
Okay, so he's saying, oops.
Any test in this video is the guitars. Everything after the guitar...
Okay, so he's saying the identical things: the guitar cable, the pedal board, the amp settings, the speaker cable, cabinet, the cabinet position in the room, the mic placement, the mic cable, preamp level interface. I tell you, man, when it comes to changing tones, the mic placement, forget the mic cable, but where the mic is, like, move it a degree or move it a millimeter, you'll be blown away by how much it changes the sound. Let me see if I can get this camera better situated. I think it's okay. All right, and then so there's the things that you have a hard time changing, and we've seen tests where people make these robots or pendulums and stuff to play the guitar so you can hit it the same way every time. But you can get it pretty close, and that's the other thing. It's like, when people are talking about differences that you really gotta kill yourself to hear, I mean, let's always think about what we're doing. We're trying to bring music to the end listener, right? They don't care. I mean, if it's such a minute difference, they're not going to care. And I know people believe in this stacking myth that a bunch of minute differences add up to a big, huge one, but it really doesn't. So anyway,
is identical, and everything before the guitar...
So he's going to try and get everything the same as much as he can for what is really hard to get exact, and that's the like how hard you're picking, where exactly you're picking. That's
guitar, so the player, the picks, the strings, the spot on the strings where the pick hits, how hard the pick hits, how fast the pick hits. All of that is controlled as tightly as I can. So,
which is hard, but I mean, again, we could do it with a robot. Have done that, and it comes out the same.
So the only difference that you're hearing is the difference between the guitars.
Okay, so he's showing what the differences are here. So one's different types of wood, a one-piece neck versus a two-piece neck, poly body and neck finish versus no body or neck finish, a compound radius versus a wider, rounder radius, different neck thicknesses, different neck widths, different pickups, big time, different pickups, 6 saddle brass bridge versus a steel 3 saddle bridge, 2 totally different tone capacitors, one 500K tone pot, or one 500K pot and one 250K pot. oversized headstock versus normal headstock, a couple ounces in weight difference, the presence of a neck pickup, even though they're not really using that, versus no neck pickup, body contours versus no body contours, binding versus no binding, Grover tuners versus cheap tuners, and 2 different nuts. So of all these things that people always say make such a huge difference, and I mean, they got like these paper and oil cap guys and cloth wrapped wire guys, whatever. The pickups make a difference. Where you put the pickups makes a huge difference. The tone capacitor, of course, the volume pots. It took me forever to really understand why the volume pot matters. I always thought off is off. So I actually, when I make my guitars, I have it so that when if I have a pot, push pull pots, if I have it in a regular position, it just completely bypasses the volume pot and the tone control. And if I pull up on it, then it'll pick up those 2 things. Okay. So yeah, if you're playing my guitar and it doesn't shut up when you turn the volume down, that's why. So now you know.
This list is long, but it's finite, so I started chipping away at it. The first thing I did was replace the pickup in the parts caster with a Seymour Duncan vintage stack and tested that.
Okay, so you hear, so he changed pickups now. I don't know if it's the same pickup. Let me see.
And after testing that, I compared it to the Anderson, which also has a vintage stack.
Oh, okay, that's the same pickup now. Okay. They sound remarkably similar, but you can hear a little bit of a difference here. I don't know if he's picking more to favor the treble strings in that next one. Again, now we're into the realm of differences where, I mean, I can throw away my credibility here completely, but it's not going to make any difference to the listener. But they do sound different. You can hear the difference, but is it a playing difference, or, are the pickups the same? Like, I mean, okay, they're the same pickups now. Are they the same height? Are they the same length, position along the neck? And then let's get into how hard is he hitting this and everything else. It really sounds like he's hitting it lighter on the parts caster, but I'm not sure. It could still be those other things.
Then I tried a pickup height test. The pickup was set at kind of a medium level, so then I cranked it down really low and then up really high to see if that made a difference.
All right, you hear that? It turns your guitar from like some weenie thing that can't even drive a distortion pedal into this like monster stack of death, right? Just by changing pickup height. So I know most people just kind of set it to someplace and just leave it there. I actually measure mine. Again, I use one of these, the cards, where is that thing? Got several of them around. So again, TikTok guys, wow, this is really working out for the TikTok guys. So here's my card. It's this one is from, I don't know, this came in like a $30 kit off Amazon, but I have the Stu Mac ones too. I actually like this one better. It's easier to read. It's just a metal, like credit card looking thing, and it has like a bunch of gauges and heights for your string action, or you can use it for your pickups. And I set mine at a very specific place. And man, so let you guys understand just how much of a difference your pickup height makes. It's huge. And it's not just gain, it's it's tone, because tone is kind of gain, and there's probably other reasons like proximity effect or something in the pickup.
After that, I continued forward through a bunch of tests, including sanding the headstock down to a normal shape.
I'm going to give you a spoiler. Changing the headstock shape, I guarantee, is going to make no difference.
Through a bunch of tests, including sanding the headstock down to a normal shape.
Yeah, of course, no difference there, right?
Having a loose versus tight neck joint.
So that loose versus tight neck joint, did he get everything the same after that? It really didn't sound any different to me, but I used to believe that you really needed this solid connection in the neck in order to get sustain or whatever. And that's why one of the reasons I run all these neck through bodies now. I really want to do bolt-ons now because it's just too heavy. But you know, I believe that neck through bodies were so much better for the sound or the sustain or whatever. And now I'm like, this doesn't really make any difference.
I tried brass saddles versus steel.
I'm going to figure brass saddles versus steel doesn't really mean anything. I could imagine that you could have more damping effect with brass. Yeah, no difference.
Using a traditional thin steel ashtray bridge instead of the longer, thicker steel bridge that came with the kit. I tried top loading the strings versus putting the strings through the body.
Yeah, how many times do we read about how much better the tone and sustain is when the strings go through the body, right? Yeah, not so much. Of course, the Telly bridge, you know, everything. The reason the Telly is so bright is because it has that metal bridge, and like he changes the bridges out and doesn't make any difference.
And I tried using a strap bridge with no plate. When I did the no plate test, the crude pickup mount I fashioned wasn't very stable, and I couldn't keep the pickup in one spot. The differences I noticed even during the same take based on tiny amounts the pickup was moving frustrated me because...
So he made like a little pickup mount for the Strat bridge one, and he's saying that it's pickup's moving around so much it's changing from take to take, and hey, pickup position matters. Think about how different. If you've ever put the exact same pickup in your bridge and neck and seen the difference between the sound of them, think about that.
Because I couldn't accurately test the strap bridge, and I hadn't really been paying close attention to how close the pickup was to the strings. So I started to wonder whether the tests I had done were even valid, and if any difference heard between the bridges or the neck joint or the headstock shape was just from the pickup being slightly different distances from the strings before and after the modifications I had done. This came to a head when I was testing necks, and I'd put the parts caster neck on my blue Strat copy to see how much difference an unfinished maple fretboard neck had from a finished rosewood fretboard neck. The heel angle didn't exactly match, so the action was ridiculously high, and I made the prediction before testing that with the strings so far away, the tone would sound weaker no matter what the differences in the necks were. So I asked myself, what if I militantly matched the distance from the pickup to the strings?
Yes. So again, when you're comparing guitars, start there. Get the pickup height right.
I got my feeler gauges and measured the distance from the low E string to the pickup and the high E string to the pickup on my Anderson and matched it as close as I could on the parts caster. Then I tested it.
All right. Okay. Scoff all you want. I know one of these guitars is like $200 or something. The other one's probably in the thousands, but tone-wise, you've now got the same guitar. He's got the same pickup. He's got the same pickup height. He's got the pickup in a roughly the same spot, maybe exactly the same spot as the other guitar. It sounds the same. You could maybe, possibly if you put a robot on there, you could get some slight differences, but I think that's going to be down to like capacitor and pot tolerances. That's not going to be, that's where that's going to come from, any difference there. It's the same guitar.
This was a turning point for me. There were a lot of things different about these two guitars, and not a lot that was the same. At this point in testing, here's a list of all the things that these two guitars had in common.
So let's see, same tuning, same strings, same scale length, You know, I did a couple videos on scale length testing, and I could never really tell the difference. Maybe the idea is that the harmonics are closer together on the smaller scale lengths, which might make them sound thicker or muddier. And the harmonics are further apart on the longer scale lengths, because I have that 29-inch guitar, but it really pretty much sounds the same.
I became more interested in testing the things that were on this list, and a big one was the guitar body. What if I took a radically different approach? Could it sound the same as my Anderson? I'm out in the barn, and it's time to pick a new guitar. So
he's going out to the bar. He's picking a piece of 2x4. So this is softwood. This isn't a Tonewood of any sort. This is like your regular 2x4 you get from the hardware store. It's some sort of softwood, pine or whatever. Not guitar wood. I mean, I know you use pine for some acoustic tops or whatever. I don't know about acoustics, but for electrics, you're supposed to have like some special hardwood. But yeah, this is some softwood piece of 2x4. Okay, and unlike Paul Reed Smith here, you don't see him tapping on the piece of wood and says, "You hear what that sounds like compared to this other piece of wood?" Like you see these guys tapping on wood, man. It's hilarious. You know, maybe it made a difference in those violins back in the day, not the electric ones, but the regular acoustic, like the Stradivarius or whatever. But again, that's another one where you get all these violin experts and they can't tell the Stradivarius from the $60 violin. But he didn't tap the wood, so he's not being very much of a sommelier. Sommelier is how you say.
got it.
So he's just taking a 2x4, a little piece of 2x4, and he's going to stick the neck on it, stick a pickup in it, stick a bridge in it, and have a guitar. This goes against everything the Tonewood guys say, the shape of the guitar, the type of wood used. And man, I just watched a video with like Rhett Shull. I think I had it on the channel actually. It was like Rhett Shull and a bunch of other kind of famous alleged gurus, and they had Paul Reed Smith on there, and they just took it for granted that wood made a difference, and they made fun of people who were saying it didn't, but they never provided any evidence for their side. But so now this guy's got a 2x4, the absolute wrongest thing to use. He's got the wrong shape, and boy, he didn't make very tight neck pocket. He just kind of carved it out and sticking the neck in it.
This is the 2x4 guitar.
Yep.
It was made from a piece of scrap wood bolted to a neck from a 72 reissue thinline telly. The neck has a thick finish on it and a 3-bolt neck joint. The neck radius is 7.25 inches. Steel saddles were installed in place of the brass ones on the bridge. The strings are top-loaded. The pickup was wired directly to the output jack with no electronics in between.
All right, so now this one's going to be bypassing the volume pot and the tone pot and the tone capacitor. So let's see how that goes.
But it had a Seymour Duncan vintage stack pickup just like the Anderson, and the height had been precisely adjusted. So I tested it.
See, and this is, if there's any difference here, this is like how it is when you have one of my guitars in its regular position with the volume pot switched down, and it's bypassing the volume and tone controls. It's louder and it's brighter, isn't it? If anything.
I couldn't get it to exactly match. I thought maybe the bodywood does play a role, or maybe it's something to do with the neck finish, but
You gotta compare apples to apples when you're talking about electronics. We need the same electronics in this thing.
hearing a harsh top end, so my thought was that maybe it's because I wired straight from the pickup to the output jack and didn't include any electronics to bleed highs off to ground. So I installed electronics.
Now they're pretty much the same, right?
This was the bingo moment for me. I had the data. I captured it on video. You just saw it. At this point, here's what the two guitars did have in common.
So now this tuning, string, scale length, type of neck, sort of. Same pickup distance to the strings, same pickup position along the strings, same pickup slant angle. So I guess that's kind of redundant, but it helps drive it home a little bit. And the effective volume pot value.
That's a pretty small list. I was satisfied with my research and ready to stop, but I had this voice in my head of all the players and builders out there who have thought about electric guitar a certain way for much longer than I have, and that seeing a 2x4 plank guitar still might not be a grand enough gesture to push past deeply rooted beliefs, so I went even farther for one last test.
Okay, so now, if you want to see all the NPCs get triggered, man, this is where they really start screeching. And he's got two tables, and I don't know if they're wood or metal tables. Like I'm sure somebody's gonna say the tables were made a long time ago, so the wood sounds better or whatever. But basically, he's put a bridge and a pickup on one table, and he's put a headstock sort of thing and some tuners and a nut on the other table, and he's stringing strings between the two tables, so they're completely out over the air. There is no Tonewood underneath the strings at all. There's no neck. There's no body wood really. I mean, I guess the whole table is a body wood, but if there's really a Tonewood thing, this should sound so much different than a regular guitar.
This is the air guitar. I made it out of a bench and a shelf. My dad made the bench in 1990 for repairing motorcycles. The shelf is upside down, sitting on two chairs and weighted down with a pair of Honda engines. The ends of the shelf are braced against the bench with 2x4s so the strings don't pull the shelf closer to the bench when tuned up. The headstock is a piece of wood with tuners put in it. The nut is the bottom half of a metal locking nut meant to go with a Floyd Rose type bridge. 25.5 inches away are the steel saddles on the steel top-loaded bridge with a Seymour Duncan vintage stack mounted in the plate, and all of that screwed into the bench. The pickup is wired to a disembodied Tele control plate with a 250K volume pot. This is wired to a jack, and a guitar cable goes from the jack straight to my...
The other thing that control, what usually you call the control cavity or whatever, the control system is just sitting there in free air there. That's a sin, right?
Combo amp. The air guitar was tuned to open D, and so was my Anderson Tele. I matched their pickup heights and strummed an open chord on both multiple times on the same spot on the strings.
These are supposed to sound so different, right? Paul Reed Smith and right Rhett Shull and all you smart guys. It's there's no. I know what they're probably going to say is that the tables are the body, but we definitely know from this that the shape doesn't mean anything, right? Nor does the weight, because these tables weigh a lot more than a regular one. It's just, you're going to hear a lot of special pleading. If you research the reactions to this video, it's like all the No True Scotsmans in the world right here.
Here are the things that the Anderson and the air guitar had in common. Tuning, strings, scale length, pickup distance to strings, pickup position along the strings, pickup slant angle, and effective volume pot value. In the future, I'll be looking deeper into these factors. Hopefully you'll join me.
All right, so there you go. So we talk about this video all the time on here, and I guess it's time to actually just put it up there and go. I have actually featured bits of this on the channel before, but there we go for the whole thing. And let's see him play this out. guy's country skills. You know, I'm Hawaiian. I should be able to play slide guitar, right? But I can't at all. So if you get a chance, go watch this guy's Where Does the Tone Come From on an electric guitar amp or speaker cabinet. They're really good too. That's all I got for this week, or for today anyway. I'll probably be back, make some videos tomorrow.